Okay, I just didn't see the thing, so I wasn't sure, but
Thank you for saying that. So we are recording now. So
okay,
Bonnie, it is to you.
awesome. So before we get into my presentation, I thought we could dive into a musical experience, and I'd like to invite you all to join in at home. Now, of course, I got to work around my cat, but this is like telehealth in action here. I like to joke Queenie's my co-therapist, so a lot of my clients know and are fond of Queenie. So I just got home from Thornton, and she's like ready to go. But yeah, we'll do a quick little musical experience. And if you have something to drum at home, I invite you to grab it. So this can be, I have a bowl, a pillow, but you can even use like a surface, like a desk or a table, or if you want to use your lap, that is perfectly fine too. Anything that's accessible to near you for drumming. So get comfortable and please feel free to drum along at home. But we're gonna go lap, lap, clap, lap, lap, clap. And on my bowl, lap, lap, clap, lap, lap, clap. And we'll keep going, lap, lap, clap. We will rock you. Lap, lap, clap. We will rock you. Tiffany will rock you. Queenie will rock you. And everybody, we will rock you. Lap, lap, clap, and roll. 3, 2, 1.
Yay!
Yay! Thank you so much for following along at home. I figured what better way to start a music presentation than with a short invitation to make some music, especially after maybe a long day for some people too. All right, I will share my screen and we'll get into the presentation. So today we're going to talk about using music to promote your mental health and self-care through journaling and goal setting. So kind of how music can be involved in all of that. I'll do a very short introduction since Tiffany gave me a beautiful one, and then we'll talk about the benefits of music, goal setting, and what SMART goals are, a way to structure your goals. And then we'll also discuss journaling benefits. And I created a 30-day music and journaling challenge. And that's really just a resource that will be emailed to you after this. So don't feel overwhelmed like you need to do all 30 days in a row. We'll really break it down on how to use it as a resource. And then we'll kind of sum it all up. All right. So yes, I am a music therapist, and I'll go ahead and break down what music therapy is in a second. But yeah, I provide music lessons, music groups. Percussion is my primary instrument, which why I'm more inclined to start with drumming before things like this, because I'm like, oh, let's drum. It's kind of where my heart goes. Cat lover, there's Queenie, although she is front and center for this presentation too. So we're going to talk about the benefits of music and what music therapy is. So I would love to know how music has moved you in your life, and what kind of music has gotten you through difficult times, hard times. So if you want to in the chat, I'll make sure my chat's open. Here we go. Yeah. Please drop down how music has helped you in tough times. And while you guys are chatting, I'll talk about music therapy. So music therapy is using music to achieve clinical goals through a therapeutic relation with a board-certified music therapist that goes through all the undergraduate training and internship. And the clinical goals can be different domains such as motor, emotional, social, communication, and cognitive domains. So it's fairly similar to speech, SLP, PT, in the fact that music is the medium in which we achieve our goals. And while music therapy does specifically need a music therapist, you can still really benefit from music without a music therapist and using music in your self-care. And so we'll go ahead and kind of dive into these different benefits on how music can affect you positively. And these are all based on different research studies um, that are in a reference slide at the end of this, and this will get emailed out at the end as well. So just wanted to let you know it's from research. The first one is a study about group drumming, and they found that group drumming decreased symptoms of depression and anxiety through music making and connecting with others. And even though this is an online medium, when we were doing We Will Rock You, but still connecting and drumming with others. And it's been shown in studies it really improved his mental health by decreasing anxiety and creating connection with others. And I think a big takeaway from that is just making music with others can be really, really beneficial. So if you're making music with your family at home, that can be very beneficial for everybody's mental health. And then also a study found that listening to music can decrease cortisol levels, which is a stress hormone, and reduce pain and increase motivation. And preferred music is so important because it's been shown study after study and in music therapy to be the most beneficial and most effective at reaching different goals and different mental health goals. A lot of times people might think something is relaxing, like, oh, I'll just put on classical music for this person. But really, what's going to be relaxing is what that person finds relaxing, which could be classical music. Or, they found in a study with like teens that like heavy rock, like metal, was actually more relaxing than classical music because it was their preferred music. And so this is great because as we dive into the challenge, you'll find that listening to music is something really easy to do. You put on a 3-minute song that you really enjoy and you can get those benefits. And they also found with progressive muscle relaxation and guided imagery that they decreased anxiety with this music listening as well. And progressive muscle relaxation is when you tense and release different muscles, and just more evidence that listening to music has so many benefits. And then the final benefit I wanted to talk about is that music can really shift your mood into a more desirable mood and improve our moods. Um, and there's this awesome study about dancing. So, what kind of songs make you want to get up and dance? Let me know in the chat, or even just think about it to yourself. For me, it's definitely like Lizzo is probably my go-to when I think of like, do I need to dance immediately? I'm probably going to put on some Lizzo. Um, and they found it in a study that dancing not only improved pleasure, but it was dancing to groovy music, which was defined as the aspect of music that compels the body to move. So, thinking about those songs that compel you to move can be really beneficial. And finally, a technique in music therapy we use is called the ISO principle. And this is when we use music to match a mood of a client and gradually shift to a desired mood. So if a client's feeling kind of sad, we might meet them where they're at and validate those emotions by playing slower, gentler music, and then maybe shifting to a faster, more moderate, happier song. And while I would really recommend doing like a traditional ISO principle with a music therapist, I think you could still take this idea and really test it in your own self-care and for what your toolbox works, because you can figure out, does it work when I find a song that does meet my mood, or is that going to make me feel kind of worse? Because it's going to be really different for every person. Every person has different individual needs. So sometimes you might need to listen to a happy song when you're feeling sad versus a sad song. And so really testing that out for yourself um, and figuring that out. And I have kind of a poll to kind of figure that out a little bit. If you have a bad day, what's your go-to? Is it AC/DC, Adele, or Bob Marley? And so kind of just an idea to see, because if you're like, I'm going to listen to rock, that maybe if you're feeling bad, the ISO principle might work for you, or even a sad Adele song. But if you need like Three Little Birds by Bob Marley, the ISO principle might not be for you. So in the chat, we got Prince. I think that's for dancing. And then my kids pretend they don't know me. That's great. And then Bob Marley was submitted in the chat. So then that could be something where like, maybe this idea of matching the mood works, or maybe, yeah, you just need to put on your favorite songs, your happy music, and that's going to shift your mood. As we all know, music is powerful. So we want to be really conscious with those choices too, because the ISO principle does work for some people, but for other people, we want to make sure we're really honoring what works best for ourselves, because music can shift our emotions and be really powerful. So we don't want to accidentally compound it.
Bonnie, and I think, just to add there, how receptive or perceptive our children are as well. Because my son too, if he can see you stress or whatever, he's like, and he has, my playlist, he's like, let's listen to Josh Groban, or today let's listen to AC/DC and dance mod. So it's funny just because we know how much and how it impacts them as well. And then they know how it impacts us. So I love that.
Definitely. Awesome. And so those are research-based things that have worked in music and how music's beneficial in our lives. But also a benefit is that it's accessible. And like we've talked about, you can just listen and receive a lot of these benefits. But also anyone can make music. You don't have to be a musician. You don't have to practice these extreme hours. It doesn't have to take a long time of your day. You can listen for like 3 minutes and receive a lot of these benefits. And really, we're all musical on a physiological level. Our heartbeats are rhythmic, our breathing is rhythmic. And so we're all musical, kind of bringing it back to what Tiffany said at the beginning. We all, listen to music, we all enjoy music. And a lot of that is because there's this really foundational aspect of being human that it overlaps with being musical. And when we tune into that, we can really nurture ourselves. All right, so next we're going to talk about goal setting, as my cat's getting really tangled in my headphones, so pardon me. Queenie. Here we go. So we're going to talk about goal setting, and then we're going to talk about some SMART goals, which is just a way to structure some goal setting. So examples of using music with goals, there are some different ways I thought about how we can use music with goals. And one way is you can have a goal itself that is musical. So that's learning a new instrument, setting time aside to make more music, a goal that's structured around the music. But you can also use music to reflect on goals. So if you're kind of writing down a goal, thinking about a new goal, you could put on a song that you enjoy while you're thinking about the goal and kind of use that as a meditation, a motivation. It's been found in studies just having music on can help us cognitively function a little better. So having that music while you're reflecting and making a goal, or even music to achieve a goal. So if you have a goal, a self-care goal to exercise, to go on a walk, you can create a playlist of your favorite songs, and even songs you guys are writing in the chat right now or taking note for yourself. You're already creating a playlist of songs you really enjoy. And so that's how easy it can be of like writing down 10 songs you like. That's your playlist. You can find them on YouTube, on Spotify, and really use that to motivate yourself to walk. Again, Lizzo's probably my exercise music too. If I gotta move, that's probably my go-to. So thinking about like what kind of music do you like to work out to, that can even be the same if you have a self-care goal of, even though I need to clean my space more because I know that's going to help me focus. If I know my space is clean as a kind of self-care, music can help motivate that as well. And so one way to make a goal is called a SMART goal. And these are goals I use even with my clients. And so each letter stands for something. We got specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based. And on the next slide, we'll even make a SMART goal together, or I'll tell you guys a SMART goal I came up with that is related to this challenge that I've created. And like I said, this challenge we're going to look at is a resource for you all. So really developing your own SMART goal around it, we'll talk about too. The biggest thing is that the time-based aspect of it really allows these evaluation periods where you can reflect on your goal, because you can really give yourself grace with your self-care goals and tweak them as you go at these time-based intervals, where if you're like, in a month, I'm going to check back in on how this goal went, and you can get really curious why or why not you didn't meet it, and really come with that with grace. Because I know with goal setting, a lot of times when you don't hit a goal, it can be really frustrating and stressful. And you feel like you're not really getting anywhere. But if you get curious and tweak little things, you'll build on that momentum over time. So before we get into a specific SMART goal and like what that would look like, and even the challenge, we're going to talk about journaling real quick. So real quick in the chat, if you like, please put one word on how journaling makes you feel, just so I kind of get a sense if it's something we like, if it brings a little stress, and that's all good wherever you're coming from with journaling. Because it can be overwhelming to be like, oh, I gotta do music, I gotta journal, but really we're gonna try to get this in a way where it can be really accessible for everybody. So some of the benefits of journaling, found in a study, again in the references, is that you can develop insights, compassion for self, and body awareness. You can release, explore, and regulate emotions through the writing, kind of getting it out on paper. You can keep track of daily events and evolving insights. Kind of, you have that log, and you can keep it going. And then there's improved health benefits physiologically, lowering blood pressure, enhancing immune function, and decreasing depressive symptoms. And I think the first thing I think of when I see all of this is that there's so many overlaps with music. In music, you explore emotions, rhythm structures time, and you can really receive improved health benefits, physical health benefits from both journaling and music. So when you combine both, you can find different tools that work best for you. You know, maybe it's one aspect of journaling, one aspect of music that you lean more towards, or even combining them and receiving kind of a compounded benefits. But either way, they're just different ways that you can express yourself in creative art forms, which is kind of what all of this gets down to, is that when we express ourselves with creative art forms, we can really receive these benefits for our mental health. So with that, let's reveal my SMART goal that I came up with. So this is related around the challenge I'm going to show you guys in a second. And basically, you can use this challenge to develop any kind of goal with the SMART goal. So I wrote, I will use the 30-day challenge once a week to experience new musical experiences by February. And with this, it's specific. I'm going to use this daily challenge. It's measurable. In February, it's a yes or no. Did I do it once a week? Yes or no? Is it achievable? I hope so. I set the once a week parameter. I think that's where you could tweak it for your own life, especially like maybe it's once a month. It doesn't have to be this daily practice necessarily, or maybe it is, but you decide to do it daily for like a minute a day. Like really making sure it's achievable for wherever you are in your life and your self-care. Because I know, especially as parents, you guys are really busy, and I want to make sure that we can develop these goals around your life and how it's achievable for your life. And then the next one's relevant. So with this goal, I put a focus on new musical experiences. So I would pick things out of the challenge that I haven't done before, and that felt relevant for my goal. But maybe it's more relevant for you to do something more consistently to get a self-care benefit. Maybe it's more relevant for you to focus on the journaling or to focus on the music. Again, you can really make this work for you. And the time-based part, I put by February. So in February, I would go, did I do this goal? And just kind of reflect on it. And I think the journaling can even come in here with goal setting, because what you can do before the challenge is look over the challenge and just journal, what do you want to get out of the challenge? And that answer is going to inform your SMART goal. Because if it's like, I want to focus on listening experiences, that would inform the specific part of your SMART goal that you write. And then after the challenge, wherever you set that time base, whether it's checking in a week, checking in a month, wherever you want to check in, then you can reflect, did I meet it? Why or why not? Or are other self-care goals more important right now? And it just really allows this period to come back and to check in and to reflect and evaluate and give yourself a lot of grace. And life, our lives change too. So maybe you need to shift your self-care goal. I see that a lot with professionals, actually, where like we get a self-care routine and we're like, we're good. But then, life changes, and what helped us before might not help later. So always kind of checking in. I think journaling is a great way to kind of reflect on that in those time-based intervals. So without further ado, here's the challenge. And again, this is going to get emailed to you all. And I know it can look like a lot just because there's 30 different things on here. But what I want to point out is that the biggest thing I wanted this was to make a lot of these short. I think the longest one is 17 because I put attend a concert or watch one online. So that could take a little more time. Although if you watch like a live song, that could be a little shorter version of that. But everything else should take not too long, or you could tweak that time in your goal. And so really this challenge is for you and however you would want to use it. If you want to go in order, great. If you're like, oh, I only want to focus on the listening ones, great. If you're like, Maybe one day I'll do a music, and then one like the next day I would journal. That's great too. I really wanted to keep this broad. Even in my work, I'm very client centered, and I think that frustrates people who like want resources from me sometimes because I'm like, oh, like you could use this to help whoever because you can tweak different things. So I kept it really broad, but I'm hoping that you can find something in here for your own self care and to pull for your own toolbox and really make work for your life. So, in conclusion, anyone can make benefit, and anyone can make benefit. Anyone can make music, and it can benefit your mental health. It doesn't have to take a lot of time. Goal setting can be structured with SMART goals, so making sure they're specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time based. And don't feel like you need to get caught up in making that a perfect goal. It's really just to set a structure to set your self-care goals up for success. Journaling can be paired with music to reflect on experiences and express yourself. They're both creative arts forms, but you can find maybe music is better for you than journaling and really focus on one more than the other. And again, this 30-day challenge is really a resource for you. So please use it in whatever way works best for your life. Once a day, once a week, skip around, really maybe sit down and design a SMART goal of what is realistic and achievable and relevant to your life.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. And I'll flash the references page real quick too. And yeah, we're going to go into Q&A, but I just wanted to say thanks before we go in, and I'm excited to talk a little more about everything.
Yes, we have some great questions in the chat. And thank you, Sherry Ann, who said, sending all my love out to everyone, power to parents. I love that comment and statement because yes, the power to us. And the more we work together, come together, support one another is so crucial. So thank you for that. We have one that says, does it matter about the type of lyrics, for instance, negative or sad, even mean lyrics, as if the music is helpful? And I love that question because it reminds me of my days in the 80s when my mother took all my CDs that from the hairband days of AC/DC and Ozzy Osbourne. It's like, no, you're not listening to this music. So I'll turn that over to you, Bonnie.
Yeah. This is a tricky question because again, it's very like individualized. But as I understand it as a professional, preferred music is most of the time like the way to go. So even if something's kind of negative or sad or mean, if that song is your jam, that is a song that could be helpful. Now, the biggest place this doesn't work is addiction. I've heard if a song has like heavy drug use in it, and or if it's a song you listen to when you are struggling with addiction, that could be music that's kind of like too powerful. Even if it was a preferred song at a time, it could it could trigger. And so we could see where that could happen with mental health too, I think. And it's really probably understanding different songs in your life, because that's why this is a hard question to answer, because it's going to be so personal. So for instance, if there's a sad song that's really, really triggering for you, like if it was something you listened to during grief, then that might not be appropriate if you're trying to, feel better. And so, but if it's a general song that doesn't have a strong association to something in your life that's negative, sad, or even mean, I love even mean. I'm like, oh, I wonder what songs even mean. Um, I think that could be beneficial if it's something that makes you feel better or even validates you in the moment. That's what's tricky about the ISO principle. What we're doing is we're validating the client. Because have you ever been like sad and someone's like, oh, just cheer up? That's what the ISO principle is. It's like not approaching somebody with, oh, just be happy. It's because you're not happy. So in those instances, a sad song might be okay. Just maybe making sure it's not one that has a really strong connotation with something in your life, if that makes sense. Like I even have a grief playlist that I've listened to in different times of my life when I'm grieving someone. And so if I was like trying to feel better after a long day, I probably wouldn't go to that playlist.
So Bonnie, just to add to that too, as parents, how would you suggest in working with our kids through this? because as we think of, our teenagers and how impressionable they are, and how, so up and down that can be, and especially with suicide and so much going on, how do we work with them and monitor them and kind of guide them in the type of music? And I know that's a heavy question because that's each kid's individual, but you know just like when my parents grabbed my tapes and threw them in the garbage, I'm like
Yeah, and that's really difficult. And I mean, I think everyone's parenting styles are probably different too. So, if you're a parent and you don't think your kid should be listening to sad music, I think that's fine too, especially with, hormones raging. If we're wanting to be gentle and careful about that, I think that that's okay. I think helping them, I think kind of, monitoring as much as you can. I'm trying to, thinking back to even my teenage experience, right? I remember, like a guy didn't like me in middle school, so I went home and I like cry saying I'm not that girl from Wicked like all night, and my mom was like, "Are you okay?" And like obviously I'm not okay, but she let me sing the sad song, and I was fine after that. And if somebody had tried to be like, "Oh, just listen to this happy song," I don't know if that would have been as helpful in that moment. But that was like somebody not liking me versus like suicide is a very different mental health struggle that I think we need to be really conscious about. And maybe even having conversations with our kids about some of the music they're listening to. And if they are listening to something sad, maybe trying to use that kind of ISO principle to be like, well, could we end like the music listening with something a little more positive once we're starting to feel better? So
Mhm.
hopefully that helps.
Appreciate that. There's a couple more. I see one in the chat and another one on the Q&A. The polyvagal nerve. My kids have done safe and sound where the music has been used to tap into this nerve. It's great, but not something we can do every day. What can I do to support this?
Yeah. Oh, I love polyvagal theory. I nerd out
Oh,
about this a
polyvagal.
lot.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I said
No worries.
polyvagal.
No worries. Yeah, it's the polyvagal theory. It's super awesome. And I'm not trained in safe and sound, but I've definitely heard about it and know that it has its benefits too. Um, Really anything kind of like sensory with music. I think if you're dancing or drumming, that can really tap into the polyvagal nerve as well. So doing like structured drumming um, can, I think, could support that in between. And that could just be putting on a song you guys both like, finding some kitchen bowls, finding a table, and just drum to the beat. Keeping a steady beat has been shown in research to have a lot of different benefits emotionally, drumming with other people, cognitively, even with communication, opening up different rhythmic pathways. So that would be my recommendation is just move to music, and that should support between that because yeah, the safe and sound is like a listening program, so you have to like put on the headphones and really it's really like structured time. But I think put on a song and do like some really synchronized dancing, and that should support it. Yoga too, actually. That's not music, but I know yoga also has done a lot with or does activates the nerve as well.
Wonderful, thank you. In the chat, it says, how do you journal if you have dyslexia?
That's a good question.
I know there's a lot of tools and resources out there for online, with the kind of the dictation too, or the recording journaling. I would have to do a little bit more research on stuff, but I know that does make it tricky from having them to write it out. So that's a great question. And I can circle back with you, Tammy, actually on that. Because I know some of our professionals definitely have a lot of resources on that. So I will take that as a to-go item and
Yeah.
circle back because I think that's an excellent question.
I love the idea of like the audio journaling because I feel like at least my brain starts getting really creative where if you wanted then you could play it back and even like improvise like some music to it, and really like reflect on what you wrote and said. So a lot of the benefits of journaling is organizing our words, right? And so it's getting it on the paper, which is beneficial for some people, but a lot of other people are also like auditory learners. So I think organizing your words auditorily, like in a recorded, could be really cool. I'm not an expert on it, but I just thought that was a cool idea.
Oh, I love that. Somebody added that, my dyslexic kiddo draws and doodles with some words. A comic book frame is awesome for him.
That's great.
Yes. Yeah, that's another great. But I'll
Yeah.
definitely circle back. Any more questions or comments for Bonnie? And I'm going to go through mine. Like I said, I have this, it's 10 tips on how to process your child's neurodiverse diagnosis. So I am curious from those that are attending, how long has your child been diagnosed? So I'm curious, like, how many? Is it new? Is it old? Is it where are a lot of you in that process? And then also, what is share with me as a parent, what do you struggle with the most? I know that's a heavy question, but just curious to get your feedback from that. So let me share my screen with you guys. All right, I see some chats coming in. Wait a minute. You're seeing the wrong. You guys aren't seeing my thing, are you?
I see it like open in Word.
Do you see the 10 tips?
Yeah.
Okay, you are seeing the tips. I don't see that. That is so weird. All right, so thank you. Let's see, we have 3 years ASD, 2 years ADHD. All right, some different ones. Well, I wanted to put this together because, again, as I mentioned, I've had my own personal journey and what that looks like, and seeing how we can, just really provide those tools and resources. So as you all know, when you get the diagnosis, as you're going through that, as you know something's going on, there's a lot of emotions going through us, a lot of things that we're feeling. And how do we dissect that? How do we simplify that as best as we can? So these are just quick tips that I wanted to share. So on the first one, and this will be emailed as well with Bonnie's presentation, with her journal guide as well. But when you think about taking care of yourself, and again, I mentioned in the beginning of this, self-care is tough, but give yourself time to process those feelings and emotions. Allow yourself to even start with just grace, knowing that we're going to fall some days. Some days are going to be successful. Some days are not going to be as successful. So really also seek the help. I think sometimes it's hard for us to ask for help. It's hard for us to receive help. But just knowing that if we surround ourselves with those people that understand and love us and be in that opportunity. And one thing that I found very important for me, and I've talked to so many parents too, is I love my friends that don't have neurodiverse children, but I it's so critical to have the ones that do have neurodiverse children. Those have saved me in so many different situations because they truly understand. So when I think about, building that community through Bright Minds of what that looks like, it's bringing us together and as parents supporting parents. So make sure you do have some other acquaintances that you have so you can talk about those experiences to support yourself. And through this 3-part series, one thing we talked about is just, even in here, I say take a 20-minute walk, but even take a 5-minute walk. It doesn't have to be big. I started meditating for 2 minutes at a time because that's what I could squeeze in. So when we think about self-care and just taking care of yourself, don't think it has to be these big, timely events. What Bonnie said, listen to your favorite song once a day and just feel what that does to you. So I love how we can do some of those things. And what I included in here is also some podcasts for parents. So I included 4 different ones that all have varying levels of what they offer and what they provide. And it's always good, again, to hear those experiences. But what I have in here is parenting your challenging child.
Hey,
Tilt
Tiffany.
parenting. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Right now, we're flyers on the screen instead of the 10 tips. And those
Okay.
podcasts sound great. So I'm like, ooh. There it is.
There it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so I moved it in front of my screen so I could see it. That's why it was turned. So I'm sorry. So we have all those. The other things is to, share the diagnosis with your child. And I know that can be a tough conversation. One of the things that I want to highlight with this and what made it easier for me is looking at it as a superpower, because it is a superpower. As we know, and more people are coming out when we talk about famous people that are out there that have ADHD, that have dyslexia, that have autism and learning differences, is to show the success of so many of those. All of those have said that they struggled significantly through school. For example, you have billionaire Sir Richard Branson. He dropped out at the age of 16, was told that he was not going to amount to anything. He suffered from dyslexia and ADHD. And he's the first billionaire that has $8 billion companies, showing them the success of Justin Timberlake. You have Michael Phelps, who's come out with his ADHD. Autism, you have Tim Burton, Bill Gates, Susan Boyle, Mozart, Emily Dickinson, Albert Einstein, Steven Spielberg from ADHD. So as we think about how we present this, how we talk to our kids, just making sure too that they understand that we're not alone. And that doesn't mean that they're any different than anyone else who's out there, and what they can achieve. The second thing on this 10 tip sheet we have is how to talk. Well, the other part is sharing the diagnosis with others. So how do you go about presenting that information, that news, with family, with friends, with teachers? And I'm actually in the process of putting together a letter that just says, dear teacher, dear instructor, here's my child. Get to know his heart and who he is and what he's about and the things that make him strong and those strengths. And let's, work on some of those needs and the impulsivities, but how do we change that shift and that focus? So once that's done, I'm going to put that out there as a tool and resource for parents, just to say, let's not stomp on the spirit of our child as they want to try new things and do new things, but let's understand what that impulsivity is that you might not see. As if my child walked in, with Down syndrome, or if he had, wasn't able to see or had a missing limb, there's a visual impact, but because we can't see what's going on to the mind or how they read, how can we change our focus as a society to give grace and give understanding and see and know what that looks like? So there's the part of the resources with how to share the diagnosis. The other thing that we have is, get information organized. I have papers in so many different places, but getting that binder, getting all your notes, getting everything, all the evaluations put together in one place just makes it seem so much easier of understanding what's going on, where to reference, where to find that. We have on here in step 5 is completed an evaluation. And I understand that, if you already have a diagnosis, you've gone through the evaluation process, but make sure whatever those evaluations are, that you get a full understanding of what that looks like, what that means, and what that does. And I also included embedded in this is what's the difference between a medical diagnosis and an educational diagnosis. So making sure that you have that under, difference to look at and consider. Look into treatment options, and that's kind of, can get tough as you talk to different providers, professionals. What does that look like? Because you have so many options to choose from. So where do I start? Where do I begin? How do I pull back? What do I do now? What do I save for later? So it's not like your child's in therapies and, tutoring and all this all the time, but where are they doing to enjoy themselves too, like playing tennis or doing music and stuff? So And then the other one is find out about insurance, because that does definitely have an impact. And beginning to build your child's team. Developing a team is important, and where do you go as far as the professionals to providers? And as I mentioned, take a look at Guided Bright Minds. We have amazing professionals who are dedicated to helping our amazing children. So we have all of that information on there. Set a safety plan. And this one I want to touch base on a little bit too, because it does talk about, inform your local police and fire department. And I want to set, caution, because there's different scenarios of neurodiversities that can impact. And we know the safety and understanding if they are at risk of leaving or harming people. So, I mean, that's in there just as a suggestion. You're going to know the circumstances of what that means. And I just want to caution that just because your child has a neurodiversity doesn't mean you call, let them know. But if there is the concern that, they might wander off, or if something's going on, that they understand that how your child brain works, what that means and what that could look like. So there isn't a situation where they feel it's defiant, but understanding that there's this, anxiety and impulsivity that could happen. So just, make sure there are safety plans. And then the last one kind of goes back to the first one of taking extra time for yourself, making sure that you're giving yourself that breath that you need, that time to decompress at the end of the day, the time, like I know many parents and myself included, to lock yourself in the bathroom time to time, do a 2-minute, meditation, listen to a 5-minute Josh Groban song, whatever it is that's going to soothe the soul. But just take extra time for yourself and support yourself, with those that really are there to that understand, that are going to be that rock that you need at the time of desperation, that'll just hear you cry, hear you scream, whatever it is that needs to happen. But that's important to do. So those are the 10 tips that I put together. And again, we have, I think, over now 56 different articles on our website of just helpful hints, not too much information or detail in different situations and scenarios that we want to share. And if there's more that we don't have, that you'd like to hear about, let us know, because it's about you, and it's about us wanting to help you and, being a part of that. So, all right, let me stop sharing. Go back here. So any other questions, comments before I wrap it up? Somebody said, I love talking to other parents at my kiddos therapy office. I've made great friends this way. Yeah, I love that, because that has made a difference for me. And especially even those that have older kids who are willing to help. And and as you all know, everyone's willing to share, here's what worked, here's what didn't, here's what was successful, and just really supporting each other. So that is the end. Thank you guys. So in our advertisements, we talked about that at the end, there's going to be giveaways. So what we're going to do, and it wasn't after the end, it was after all of them. So we're going to conglomerate all the participants that attended, not registered, but that actually attended the meetings. And we have amazing giveaways that all of our professionals put together. And so we will go through and do the drawing, and we will contact you, the email that we have, if you have been selected to win. And at the end, I'm also going to send you a copy of this recording. And like I said, all the documents. And there is a contact sheet on the Guiding Bright Minds website. Like I said, please reach out to me. I have this question. I need this. I will personally help you walk, talk about professionals, or, guide you in the right direction as best as I can too. But I want to be a free resource because I understand how exhausting and how overwhelming it is. So if there's an article you want to know about, if there's some things like the what is it, vagal,
Polyvagal.
polyvagal. I want to say it the ah, not the a. Polyvagal.
It's an accent.
And those things. So we can help and support. So that's what I want to say. Bonnie, any last words from you?
Yeah, first I just wanted to thank both Guiding Bright Minds and Untapped Learning for having me as a speaker. I really enjoyed putting together these resources for parents because I know it's so important right now. It always, self-care is always important, but we're 2 years into a pandemic. Burnout is real for professionals and parents, so I really hope that we can find a way to use music to help improve. And just thank you guys for all the 10 tips is amazing. Like, you're really putting out some really good resources for the community, and I'm just thankful that that's out there for everybody, so that everyone can find some help. And then just everyone watching, remember, everyone's creative. I think we get caught up in society thinking like if we're not like going into being a musician or into an artist, we're not creative. But every human is creative, and you do creative things in your day, whether you know it or not. Cooking is creative, so really lean into the creative arts, whether it's journaling, music, or drawing, or whatever creative art resonates with you. Lean into that for your self-care.
Yes, awesome. Thank you so much. This was wonderful. Thank you all. Have a wonderful evening and a great rest of your week. Bye, everyone. Thank you.